Thanks for those that made the drive. We've got people as far as Gladstone today, so Sarah, thank you for driving the longest today. We've got Agnes, we've got Maryborough in the room, obviously Bundaberg, short drive from Bargara, Moore Park Beach, come a long way. So today, hands up who filled out their planning book this morning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's pretty cool. Anyone notice a habit around that when a deadline comes shorter, you speed everything else up? So I remember changing brands 2 years ago, and I sat down with John, and John said to me, he said, Ainsley, all right, so what do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? And I said, oh, well, I want to do this. I want to grow it to 6 offices. I want to have X. And he's like, okay, so what's your time frame for that? And I said, oh, well, look, if we can do that in 5 years, we'll be great. And he said to me, so what's stopping you from doing it in 6 months? And I went, that can't be done. He said, why not? And I sat there and I was like, it just can't. He's like, why? And I said, because you can't. And at that point, you sort of sit there and just going, this guy's like way smarter than I am, and I'm sitting here just telling me you can't do it. And he said, look, what are your mooring lines? What's actually holding you back? What's stopping you from doing that? And how do you speed it up? So I just want to start with something which hopefully we've got enough noise.
Success requires 8 key things. Most people overlook number 8 and never reach true success. Number 1, hard work. Forget about luck, it's all about hard work, believe me. Number 2, patience. If you're losing patience, you're losing the battle. Number 3, sacrifice. If you don't sacrifice for what you want, then what you want becomes the sacrifice. Number 4, consistency. Consistency transforms the average into the extraordinary. Number 5, discipline. Our motivation gets you started, but discipline keeps you going strong. Number 6, self-confidence. It's not about whether they like you, it's about knowing you'll be just fine if they don't. Number 7, a positive attitude. It might not solve every problem, but it'll definitely irritate the naysayers. And number 8, focus. Keep your eyes on your goals, not the obstacles. When you focus on what truly matters, everything else fades away. Move forward with clarity and determination. You're beautiful. If you've made it this far, drop a 100% in the...
So, pretty cool quote, stole it. Most of the things you'll find in my life for the last 20 years has been rip off and duplicate. I'm not a superstar, I've got nothing special, but I just learnt that if you can use a whole bunch of things from everybody else and learn from a whole bunch of people's mistakes, you can probably shortcut a few of those things. So today is about planning. Planning, why? If you've been around me long enough, most things you will hear me say is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And throughout life, doesn't matter when you start, doesn't matter whether you start when you're 17, it doesn't matter whether you start whether you're 60. If you don't just keep taking shots, you'll never know where you'll actually end up. And if you just keep doing it and you have a goal and you start somewhere and then next year you have a few more goals and you're like, well, hang on, I got that done. I got to here, I got to there. And then you go and have a look back in 5 years and go, oh, geez, we actually accomplished all that. But if we don't start and we don't get some idea, we're not going to get anywhere. So I'm going to use my daughter this morning. So we're sitting down at 6 o'clock this morning having a coffee, and she's like, Dad, you didn't see me doing this. I'm writing my goals out. And it's quite funny is we've got a young lady that's over here, and she's like, well, where do I start? And I said, just start writing a line. And then you put an accomplishment beside it. And then, and most of her stuff, for those that don't know, is around football and around fixing a knee and bits and pieces, and work for her is a priority, but it's probably secondary to her returning to sport. So a lot of her goals are very different to yours, and a lot of your goals are different to mine, and vice versa. And it doesn't matter where we start, it doesn't matter, it's more about where we finish and whether or not we can do it together and whether we can actually just spur each other along. Steve how old are you, Steve? 67. He's been in real estate 45 years. I don't think anyone beats that, does they? 45 years? Nobody? All right, so the thing I love about Steve the most is he brings so much experience, but I often talk to him and I say, hey, do you remember when this happened? He goes, yeah, no, I remember that, and this, and this is what we did here and we did there. He's got so much experience, but he's also done a lot of steps along the way, to ensure where he wants to be for, the next chapter in his life and what that looks like, whether it's fishing, grandkids, and everybody's got a different journey. Like mine, a lot of people are here that, I only want to own 50% of this company by the time I'm 50. So I've got an 8-year goal of where I want to be in 8 years' time. And it's not because I don't want to retire. Steve probably doesn't want to retire. Well, what are we going to do, Steve? There's only so much fishing you can do, but hey, you know what? If we can make this job fun and we can enjoy life and it can create a lifestyle and create opportunities, for me, a lot of my drive comes from being able to create opportunities for my kids that I wasn't able to do when I started. All right, and where does it start? It just, I started with nothing. Just one foot in front of the other. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about today, some of it's goals, some of it's personal. A lot of it's your own personal workbook, so don't be worried about what you write in it, because it's not to share with everybody. It's, you can share it with somebody if you want to, but if you don't want to, that's fine. But one of the very first books I read when I was 17 years old was this book here, Real Estate Riches. I realised that by the time I finished reading that book, that everything was about the US and the tax system and all that, and half of it didn't apply to Australia. There's another book called 7 Steps of Wealth in that book, and that started me on, I was an electrician back then in that time, and that started me on the journey of renovating homes, making them look better than what they really are, aka photography, get a valuer to do a drive-by valuation and tell them I renovated even though I only painted the front wall and did the gardens because that's all I could afford. And you had to get a special broker to get that, to do that. But, there's a little house in 16 Moncrief Street, and the only thing I did was I had $500 that week, and that was all I had paid. And I painted the front part of it blue, I washed it down, and I put some bark on the gardens, and I got him to do a drive past on Monday, and it miraculously went from $49,000 to $63,000. And I thought, holy smokes, how long has this been going on for? I just made 13 grand. So a book like that probably changed my life. The next thing, for all us control freaks in the room, which is pretty much everybody here, 4-minute work week. This book taught me one thing. The constant having to look at your phone every 5 seconds, aka your emails, is actually the most disruptive thing that you can come up with in your life. If you check your emails 4 to 5 times a day, you'll get way more work done. Everyone's given 24 hours a day, you work out how to use it. These 2 books here, Barefoot Investor. There's a new edition. Not all of it's perfect, but some of that stuff in there, that changed our world 10 years ago when we almost closed up shop and said, handed it all back to the bank and said, here you go, we're done, we can't do it. That changed our life from from having one account to multiple accounts, to making sure that we're not getting charged excessive fees and credit cards and bits and pieces, but that changed our life. I don't know a lot about this one, but Sarah can tell you a huge amount about that. We still use it today. So a lot of the things that we start with, no, it's Deanna. So a lot of the things that we do and where we start, it's just about getting started, and we traded our way back to it, and lots of you people have heard some of the parts of the story and bits and pieces, but it's just getting started. But you got to have somewhere to point to, and you got to have somewhere to direct to. And that's what this book's for. It's about a direction piece. It might not have anything about work in it at all, because you might be going, hey, I want to get to here. Or it might all be just about work and not much about personal. That's totally fine. There's no right or wrong answer to anything that you guys do today. But today, as we noticed, we didn't touch the book except for I made an appointment with you that at 9 o'clock today you'll be here and we're going to do something. So that forced you to write down some things that you probably thought about in the 1st of January, and then you kicked the can and it's now the 23rd and we probably haven't done anything about it. So it's probably more of an encouragement, because if I can help you reach your dreams, you can help me reach mine. And that's probably the important part about it. And then it's the aspiration part of where do I want to go? And that'll generally line up to where that goes. So that's a short introduction, but this here is very interesting.
In athletics, smaller the skill gap closes. If you haven't noticed, right, everybody around you is good. Everybody you play is good. It's a different level of competition. If some of you get the opportunity of going to the next level, it's even higher, right? The skill gap's even smaller. Everybody at that level is fast. Everybody can hit hard. Everybody has the mental IQ, but what will separate you? You start to realize that the biggest challenge isn't the opponent. No, the biggest challenge is who you look at in the mirror. Michael Jordan, in the pinnacle of his career, he was asked this question: Mike, what makes you the GOAT, man? What makes you the greatest of all time? They said, was it your talent, your skills, like your upbringing? What was it for you, Mike? This is his response. He said, you want to know what makes me great? I demand more from myself every single day than anyone else could possibly expect of me. I don't compete with other people. I compete with what I'm capable of. Kobe Bryant was asked the same thing. What makes you the Black Mamba, Kobe, in the pinnacle of his career? And he said this answer: every single day I chased after two things: perfection and excellence, knowing full well I would never attain either of them. But just the mere fact that I would pursue them, I would almost always beat my opponents because they would never chase after something that didn't have guarantees attached to them.
Anyone work out that real estate, if we stayed the same that we were 45 years ago, Steve, where do you reckon you'd be?
As far as?
So, has it changed?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
it's one of those things is if we don't get better, the competition is also getting better, but a lot of it, you know, like over the last few weeks we've talked about companies discounting their fees, we've talked about there's more agents than there were 40 years ago. Would you agree? Like everybody thinks it's easy. Remember, like you know, like, oh, you guys just drive around in fancy cars and, you know, look at stuff and then money falls from the sky. Everyone heard that? You know, property managers, we just sit there and talk on the phone all day. We don't actually go out and deal with irate tenants, and we don't, you know, have to go and sweat ourselves out in a entry condition report in 38-degree heat. You know, no, we just sit in a cool office and tell people to pay their rent. That's not actually it. But when you shift gears, and another analogy I use it, so when we played local rugby league and I watched this kid tear up a football field, score 6 tries weekend after weekend, and then she went to Brisbane and played in that, and the gap was like, oh, she's not as good, it looks good when you're playing with monkeys, but you go and put it in there when everyone else is good, and it's like, okay, so how do I be better? And I remember, I'll tell you a story, and a lot of these are around this because I could relate them to real estate, but it's way more fun when I talk about my kids. But there was a particular team in the Harvey Norman under-19s football game, and all the family was coming to watch on a Sunday, and they were, was it Tweed? Was it called Tweed?
It was Wynnum.
Wynnum Seagulls. Never been beaten. All the girls, they're bigger, you know, they're all strutting around like, you know, they all beat all the other teams by 36 points. And Tay wanted the fullback spot and she got stuck on the wing because she's a Bundy girl, you know, the typical old small town thing. Oh, we'll put you on the wing because you weren't here at training on Tuesday and you only come Thursday, but you know, we're gonna half the game, you're gonna do that. And I said to her, and you could tell she was nervous because, you know, Nana and Papa were there and everybody else was there. And I said to her, well, I shoved some pre-workout in a drink first. We had this ritual, you know.
I think like before that, I did the rugby sevens.
Yeah, so she'd played rugby sevens before that, but we had this ritual where we'd have breakfast, you know, we'd sit in the car and we'd talk about things, and then we'd kind of get our dressing bag and we'd get our pre-workout and we shove that in. I'm like, you got to take this 30 minutes before, so you were absolutely, when you hit the field, you're zinging, you know. I don't know if that's actually legal when you're 17 years old, but sure. We did it anyway. And I said to her, I said, look, it doesn't matter whether you're on the wing. It doesn't matter whether you're on the wing or whether you're fullback or it's the position that you didn't want to have. You can make a difference where you are. And she's like, what do you mean, Dad? I said, as soon as that ball gets kicked, I said, you chase the hell out of it and you just cream that chick on the other end of it. And I said, you just make sure when the kick goes to the 5th that you were the first person there. When you kick off from the try line, from the halfway point, I said you were the first person there. And she just destroyed these girls. It was so much fun. I was yelling and screaming. I think I almost lost my voice that day, but it was so cool. Wynnum lost that day because we decided to make a difference. We decided that I don't care if the coach didn't put me in the position that I wanted. You know what? I'm going to stay here. I'm going to do my job. The coach comes up after and goes, "Hey, I've never seen you play like that." A lot of it's mindset. A lot of people, we start somewhere, but it's not where we're going to end up. But you got to do your job where you are and get started, and then and eventually you find your way through. She got a couple opportunities later in the year, and that was pretty cool. But it's... Tell Pete he's already late, if he hadn't worked that out. So, she got a couple other opportunities at it, and, most of the story, knee reconstruction, and we're going to start the journey back. But the thing what I want to just go quickly back to is, as we all get better, as all the competition gets better, the only person that's going to push you to get better is yourself. When you look in the mirror and you go, am I happy with where I'm at? I look at the transformation Mark has done in the last 2 years in real estate. How long since you moved back from Brisbane?
4.5 years.
So Mark came back 4.5 years, and I don't think he'll mind me telling a little bit of the story. But I remember when he left me. That was pretty ordinary. That was really ordinary. He's like, Ainsley, I have to go and do it. I said, what? I just want to sell New Farm. I'm like, mate, just buy a plane ticket and go there every weekend. You come back, it'll still cheaper, you'll make more money here. No, I got to do it. I got to see whether I'm good enough. And he walked into that yellow brand and he's like, these guys are monsters. But I tell you, when he came back out, he was like, I got to get better because this competition was so stiff there and it was so aggressive that he was like, oh wow, I have to be better and I have to get better. I have to train. I have to do this. And I noticed when he came back, he was like, oh man, honestly, I was just fooling around in real estate. I was just fooling around. And back then, I think you were writing, 400 or 500? And it wasn't until you looked and went, and some of you that just started a career, some of you have been in it for a long time, some of you, when you go somewhere or you work with another team member, you're like, holy smokes, hang on a second, I actually got to lift my game, I got to be better. And that's where we are today, is I believe we have the best people in Wide Bay and Central Queensland together in a room that are excellent at their job. They live by these values. Hang on, not that one. They live by the values of excellence and quality, and we're designed here to lift each other up and for us to get better. Because at some point, I remember, even when Brad came across. Brad is a superstar. I was going to say was a superstar, but he is a superstar. All right? He was the number one agent, and we'd talk about him in our sales meeting. And I said to him at the Christmas party, and he goes, man, I have learnt so much. But I probably didn't teach you anything about real estate, did I? Not really. But But we've talked more about other stuff than we have that. And that's what I mean is today is about, let's encompass the whole circle part of it. So
getting older is automatic. Getting better is not. If you're going to get better, you have to become intentional. We literally go through life thinking that somehow the experiences of life itself will cause us to grow in our personal life. If you and I are going to get better, it's because we are intentional in our life. You see, intentional living, what it does is it takes good intentions and turns them into good actions. If you and I are going to grow, we have to grow on purpose.
We've got to get, we've got to start getting intentional about what we want, where do we want to go, what do we want to do. Some of us already here, it's more of just an injection. You guys are already are like that a lot in some of the space that you're already sitting in. We have to making sure we know our brand values. Our brand values, which I think most of the people in our room, know what that is that, we want to make sure that the quality is there. We want to make sure, that we've got the highest level of integrity when it comes to dealing with people. Like at the end of the day, real estate agents have been called sharks before. We're called dodgy, one rung up from a used car salesman, and that really motivates me to get better so that we don't have that kind of level of reputation, because that's pretty ordinary. So, our integrity, trust. I use this in some of our new recruits training and Zach's seen it before, is I have some of my clients that I've dealt with for 10 or 12 years. They throw you the keys and they throw you the keys. They don't even sign the paperwork. They just say, let me know when it's done, Ainsley. And I'm like, well, do you want this? Like, we know you'll do it. Just let me know what you end up with. Don't hear from them for a week and a half. That's trust. I can talk about property management around the trust piece, and you only got to roll through the Google reviews between Ashley and Tash and Elizabeth and Ashton. I think Vicky's now starting to get some, and Sarah in Gladstone, and you're starting to see all those people are like the trust. Your first client, Mr. 20 Properties. He just, wherever Sarah goes, I go. If Sarah leaves, 20 go out the door, because I don't do anything unless Sarah does it. Okay, that's trust. All right, excellence. That's the getting better bit. For some of you, you're starting your career. Some of you, you're halfway through. Some of you, are 3/4 of the way through. Some of you are just not done yet. But there's a little bit that we can all do and get there. Innovation. What's the one thing that I always want to be when we're in a new initiative? I always want to be first. Why? Because it doesn't take long for everyone to copy, yeah? Everybody else, social media, as soon as we do this, LJ Hooker's doing it. As soon as we do that, Ray White's doing it. As soon as we do that. So a lot of the innovation part for us is making sure that we're in front. So the next part, highs and lows of 24. Around the room, just doesn't matter whether it's personal, work-related, highlighting a career, and I'm going to start with you, daughter, so get ready, is tell me one thing that you're either proud of or that you're great that happened. Go.
Moving into...
Louder voice.
Moving into shed management.
Moving into shed management. Okay, work. Highlight last year.
Just more transactions.
More transactions last year. Highlight.
Probably living in Gold Coast.
Moving back to Bundy. No.
No, living in Gold Coast by myself.
Living in Gold Coast.
Probably starting the job.
Starting a job. Deb. Haven't got one? Okay.
Spending more time with the grandkids.
Spend more time with grandkids.
I was going to say granddaughter, but top 10 PRDs for that, in the red.
Top 10? Yeah.
And I put my VE Commodore on other people's doors last year. It was great. No one knows what that means.
Okay. He started taking his dream, which was drifting.
I started working.
Started working. Graduating. Snowboard in Japan. I'm there on Wednesday.
Moving to Agnes.
Moving to Aggies.
First
First.
solo sale.
First sale.
Asking for what I want.
Asking for what I want.
Got a puppy.
Got a puppy. Somehow I managed to get one too, and I don't know why. I still am still trying to work out why I have 4 dogs in my house.
A state cricket final.
State cricket final.
Kicking through the last quarter of the year.
Kicking through the last quarter.
Manifestation.
Manifestation. That's an interesting one.
Bali.
Bali.
Work-life balance.
Work-life balance.
Replicated work at Michael's at McGrath.
Yep.
Getting married.
Brought us up to his level.
Getting married.
Getting married.
Yeah, where were you on that one?
Buying first place.
Buying first house. I love that.
I hit a BP with new management last year.
Good.
Henry started school.
Henry started school.
Became PM.
Became PM.
Started here.
Started here.
I smashed all my goals.
Smashed your goals.
Holiday.
Holiday.
Surviving 3 heart attacks and still working.
He's not dead.
Junior rep team came second in the state.
Junior rep team. Cracked 100. Hit 150. Like, you know, so we could, you know, like if I asked you to do 3 or 4.
Mine's moving from Gold Coast.
Moving from Gold Coast back to Bundy. You got one yet, Deb? No? Not yet? Okay, cool. All right, Sarah. Come on. Hi.
Building a great aid and services team. Yeah.
Okay, good. Cool. So there's a couple of highs there, there's a couple of lows. You would have noticed in the booklet that I said scroll through your photos. What I realised that's really confronting when you do that with your family, and if your family don't actually not goal orientated. It's not a really fun time. I had a great time, and then at work there was a whole bunch of awkwardness going around because they're like, we didn't take any photos. I'm like, oh, all right. What about the next month?
Brother thought it was great. Sister not so much.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool. Is this like we take photos of achievements, right? It's actually good just to have a look and go, you know what, I actually did that. I actually did that. When I look through, there was actually stuff that I did that I forgot that I did that, you know, and I like, you know, that's an achievement. Doesn't matter how big or small, it's just something, right? All right, goal setting section. How did everybody go? Did anyone get one thing in each line, or what did we do? Yeah? Cool? How did we go put an action to it? Was that harder? How many has already started? Good. Yeah. So, what do you do after you meet it? After you know, do you set another one, or you just go, I'll tick that off and wait till next year?
Celebrate it.
Celebrate it. Yep. Set another one. Yep. So, for the real estate agents in the room, when we talk about a 6 to 8 week break, what do you do after you've had that break? Yeah, what else do you do? Book the next one. Okay, so the idea of burnout, to stop burnout, is very much around you work to a goal and you celebrate that goal, and then you reset, so you get back in and you start smashing to the next one, but you book the next bit. All right, so whether you book it as a 6 or 8 weeks or whether you put a timeline on it, that is the space. Okay? Because if you go, oh yeah, well, I'm just going to go here. Well, when? Guess what? So far, I've had the great opportunity of watching everyone as soon as they go to the week of going on holidays, aka me. Today, for this week, is I'm going tomorrow. I'm going for 2 weeks. Guess what happens? Whole bunch of listings, everyone wants you tomorrow, can we get that done? You work until 8 o'clock at night, you're going through, you're trying to jam the thing. I've had my bags packed for a week and they're all over the floor, and then I come home yesterday and the dogs have dragged them out into the hallway. And I've gone, because I was waiting for the ironing to come back so I could, you know, like restack the bag. But the big thing with it is making sure that when you hit it or you've achieved it, celebrate it, you get that feeling, you get that release of endorphin or whatever it is that, you know, that target. You know, I've clicked over 5.5 kilos of weight loss in the last 3 weeks, and I was just starting to feel good, but I want to go single digits. And I was just like, I'm sitting there, and where did I go the other day? And it was just chocolates and lollies everywhere. I was just like, oh my goodness. I'm like, I have chocolates and lollies. It was just ridiculous. And I was like, I just got to get out of here. Like, this is not a good space. You know, you go to Agnes, and Agnes has the best custard vanilla slice thing there is. And I'm just like, Ainsley, do not go in there. Stay in these 2 doors over here. And it is the bomb. Oh, no. So, yeah, so get this. I go first sales meeting, Agnes, rock up. And Julie goes, "I want some donuts." And there's like 14 of them. I'm like, "No, I can't eat them." And then her husband loves her so much that another 12 comes in 10 minutes in. And and I just like, you got to be kidding. I'm sitting here going, "Don't eat them, don't eat them, don't eat them. Let's talk about Ignite, I'll do something else." But, it's the discipline. You got to be disciplined. Mark talks about, I've been going to the gym years, but I'll tell you what, I've never worked so hard, I've never felt in better shape, I've never done this. And what did he get? He got a PT trainer that just pushed him a little bit harder. All right. So, the other part of the idea of in here is for you guys to meet each other and go, okay, well, what do you do? Do you want to keep each other accountable in that space? Do we, we've got different people at different stages, we've got different people at different levels, we've got people that have just started. But there is more experience I think it was like 300 or 400 years of, there's about 200 years of experience around the real estate industry sitting in this room. If we don't have the answer for you, especially for the new ones in the room, there's something wrong with us. All right? But you guys have got to get enough guts to go, you know what, if I actually want to get better, I got to go and see how do I get to there. Like I said to Brad wants to write 2 million. I can't help him write 2 million, but I'm going to find him something to write 2 million. Mark can't help him write 2 million because he needs to go and see and meet somebody that needs to write 2 million. All right? That's the key point. You've got to find, if you're doing 20 new managements, well, how do you do 50? Well, you've got to go and ask somebody that's doing 50. Right? If you're doing 20 deals a year and you want to do 40 deals a year, it's all possible. You just got to draw a timeline, work it out, and then work out the sacrifice versus the reward, and then work out the time frame. That's all it is. But, I was talking to Gordon the other day, and Gordon's like, I've got X amount of years that I want to do this in. I'd really like to do this. Well, today he's going to meet some people that are got the extra person that'll be able to do that, and it's about sharing information. All right? Because we're not cutting each other's grass. We're all in the same team, we're all in the same group, and we've got there's plenty to go around. But a lot of us are like, okay, how do we do that? And so it's one of the information sharing. Last year I went on an office tour. I visited 6 offices. One of them told me to smile more. Apparently a lot less serious, 67 years of age, and I walked in and he's like, "Man, you're such an intense person," but he said, "You'd make way more money if you just smile." That's all I got out of that meeting. But you know what? That is probably the single most thing. Like, I've been going and seeing principals and different people, and I am an intense person. I've got a mission that I'm on, and when I'm hungry and when I'm ready to goal orientated, like, just get out of my way, otherwise I'll stand on top of you to get there. All right, that is my nature. That is the way it is. I love to win. I can't wait to play Div 3 with you guys, for the girls and guys that are playing touch footy. It's going to be so much fun. It's going to be great. We're not losing every game, okay? We've got to at least win one. All right, that's my expectation. We've got to at least win 1 or 2. All right. No, she can't play, even with one leg. So it's. I lost my train of thought. I can't remember. Smiling, yes. So, smiling. I look back and I go, I could go to another training session, but, out of all the things I wrote down, I only probably nailed about 50% of the things that I wrote down last year out of those office visits that I need to do. I went back and revisited when I started to build out these booklets, and I was like, holy smokes, there is so much. So we sit here, and today is like, it's just about getting started and going, okay, so what do we want? Does that help us get to where our goal? I was in your office the other day. I loved looking at your dream board. I'd actually move it a little bit more to the right, so it's closer to the screen that you're staring at, so it tells you the why. And how many have we ticked off on it? A couple of them. So keep going at it. Replace some more things. I was talking to Brad the other day about the why. Everyone knows what my why is. What's your why? What are you trying to do? Where are you trying to do? And look, it may not be some monumental thing. It might be just to survive the year. Like, that's okay. That's fine. Pete was, I'm still living. It's good. But we going on cruise? That's pretty cool. We cruise next week? You're going to Fiji next week, Yeah. That's cool. You know, that's, you know, monumental. You better take some photos and stick that up. If you don't have any photos, get yourself a new phone that does fake photos. But, you know, it all starts somewhere.
You take your 5 most influential people in your life, and you'll become just like them. So you better pick them good. I had some wonderful friends in college that one day I realized they're not going anywhere. They don't have a passion to make a difference. And what I discovered is, as I began to separate myself from my friends, now I wasn't mad at anybody. I mean, I wasn't nasty to them. I didn't say I don't want to hang around with you anymore, but I determined I wasn't going to hang around with them anymore because they weren't going anywhere. And let me tell you something. Here's what I learned. Average people want you to stay average. There's a huge people pile that if you don't get out of, you'll never be high capacity. And that people pile is full of a bunch of people. They're not going anywhere, and because they're not going anywhere, guess what? They don't want you to go anywhere either. And it takes a lot of courage to let someone else control your life. It takes a lot of courage to step out, step up and say, nah, that's not who I am. It's not where I'm going. It's a journey that's a little bit different. It's okay.
That's a bit confronting. Yeah? Who's changed their friend list lately? Yeah.
The simplicity of it is removing anything from your life.
Hang on, guys, hang on. Let's listen to Hannah for a second, yep.
I find that the simplicity of it is removing anything from your life that no longer serves your purpose, whether it be a person, a memory, a past event that no longer is going to help you shape your future and becoming the better person you are.
Yeah. And look, that's really hardcore when you listen to it just plain and simple like that. And I'm not saying go get rid of your friend group. That's not what I'm saying to you. What I'd challenge you to do, and I'll relate it to a real estate term, is if the purpose is to get better, and when you put really good people in a room and you get better, it changes the conversation that you have. I might just pick on Brad for a minute. What's the conversation difference from 12 months to now different?
Massively different.
Yeah. So the conversations that he has there, he probably hasn't changed, or probably hasn't changed a lot of his friend group, but he's changed some of his work group, and the conversation is different. Now, part of when I switched from where I was with PRD before, with that franchise, with those franchise groups, even though we've still got a part of PRD still with me, they just don't like me very much at the minute. So these guys are very much a part of me. Like, I don't really care whether it's a red brand, a black brand, a white brand. I really don't. It doesn't bother me one little bit. Okay, the franchises have an issue with it, except for it fits within the realm of I've played within the circle of where it is, which is why I have 2 different brands. All right, but the whole main reason of my switch was I was chasing. I felt like I'd gone as far as I could go there, which is why I said, okay, I need to find smarter, better principals that are higher than me. And I walked into a room, and I walked in there and I went, oh dear. This guy writes 20 times what we do. And let me just tell you, the conversations when someone writes 20 times what you do, guess how long you get? It's about 6 minutes. I got 30 minutes with John. I got 5 pages of notes in 30 minutes, and I needed a toilet stop in between. And I'm still writing down I'm still working through some of the things that he said that's possible, and that's 2 years on. When you know, the other part of it is the other thing is the access to smarter people, and the access to better people, which is hopefully, you know, we look at the room that we've got here is you guys have shifted your access to better people because every one of us, we're all getting a little bit better and we've got an exposure to someone else. You know, Gordon, you now have exposure to a whole bunch of different people in the room. That goes, okay, so where can that take me? Keena, You know, little old Agnes, 6,000 homes, Julie, same thing. Is you guys have got access to like, okay, well, I'm a female and we're in a bloke-driven joint, except for when you look in the room here, it's pretty even. But you can sit there and go, okay, so who, how, what, where do I need to go, what do I need to do, what works for you, okay? Because I'll tell you, Vicky, love her to bits. So Vicky slept at my house last night, her house settles today. She's been my longest standing employee for a long time. She's old enough to be my mum, and you know, it was a bit bittersweet, you know, but I will announce to everybody that she will still remain with her website, she will still remain on her emails, she will still remain all of those things, because at the moment she's going to be taking 6 months off, and she's going to look after, you know, her daughter's got some complications around having a baby, and so she's going to spend 6 months in Mackay looking after that and doing that. She's going to refer business back to us through that space, because she doesn't know whether or not she can let go of totally of Bundaberg. We'll know a little bit more of that in 6 months' time. But she's been with us for so long, but she's taught us so much, even though half of you have never met her. But it, you know, I think, you know, like Mark's it made Mark better. And so, you know, for her, it's, you know, it's a new chapter and a new season for her, and a new part of life that, you know, she's going to do. But you know, we'll find out a little bit more about that in not very long. So, cool. All right, so we're going to do something a little bit different now. All right, it's called speed dating. All right, so we're going to get a drink. We've got some juice and some food and stuff outside, and you have to find somebody that you either haven't met or don't know very well, and you have to find something out about that person when we come back in the room. And I'm just going to walk down the room, and you're going to tell me who you met, and tell me something interesting. Okay, so it doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to be small, but you got to do that. Appraisal my ass. It's not your job, remember? You drilled that into me yesterday. Okay? All right, so we're going to just have a quick break. We're going to do a toilet break. We got some food outside, some vegan-friendly stuff there. I want you to mingle a little bit. We're going to come back at 10:15. And, you know, we can talk about some of this stuff that, you know, find out if there's anything that really ring true to you. And then we're going to come back in and we're going to talk about marketing, and we're going to talk about a bunch of other bits and pieces, and then roll in from there. Is that cool? Awesome. Let's go.